Welcome to the DAK Machine Safety Podcast. We support the development of a safer, sustainable workplace. This podcast episode, we will discuss Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission. It was established when Congress passed the OSHA Act of 1970. The commission is a panel of 3 judges who adjudicate rulings made by an administrative law judge on an OSHA citation. Both employers and OSHA may raise the issue to the OSHA Review Commission.
Does the Review Commission hear cases related to all OSHA regulations?
Yes. For the purposes of this podcast series, and to provide listeners with an understanding of many concepts related to feasible risk reduction, we'll focus on the use of alternative methods to isolate and lock a primary energy source.
How many rulings will you discuss in this module?
Among others, 3 rulings by the OSHA Review Commission have paved the way for broader use of alternative methods.
Why should I spend time learning about legal rulings?
Technical people may not be inclined to pay close attention to legal rulings, but your top management and legal staff will. Expect to be grilled on proving that the steps you take in developing alternative methods will not only pass the test of achieving acceptable risk, but also the test for OSHA compliance. We fully concur with that line of questioning. Why spend time on something determined to not be legal?
Are you suggesting that if we carefully follow the steps in this podcast series and adhere to the applicable ANSI standards, OSHA won't cite us?
No, we are not saying that because we cannot control the agency's actions. Having said that and having won many expert cases using the information in this podcast, we are confident that your organization would prevail should you have to make your case before the OSHA Review Commission. Repeating that we aren't lawyers, but some of us have had to make numerous technical cases for legal staff to challenge OSHA on these matters.
I'm still a little skeptical of what you are saying.
You should be. But please remember, everything in this podcast series is based on the literal language of the OSHA Act, OSHA regulations, ANSI standards, and other credible sources like NIOSH and ASSP peer-reviewed articles. We ask participants to make their judgments based on the credibility of our source materials.
Okay, what's next?
We suggest that you listen carefully to this podcast and then, after this podcast, do your own internet research using the information we provide so that you can quickly validate our claims with posted OSHA Review Commission rulings.
What is the first case I should review?
In 1995, General Motors challenged OSHA's interpretation and requirements of 29 CFR 1910-147 before the OSHA Review Commission. In part, the commission ruled GM believes it was not necessary to lock out the machine because the number of steps required to cause the machine to cycle would allow any employee working on the machine sufficient time to remove himself or herself from the zone of danger before exposure occurred. The Secretary has failed to establish that 1910-147 C41 was breached by respondent, and Item 1 of Citation Number 2 will be vacated.
What were the implications of that case?
This ruling had important ramifications for all cases where the term unexpected was an issue regarding applying LOTO. The Commission went on to say, "It is undisputed that the machines had extensive precautions to protect servicing and maintenance employees. An electronically interlocked gate surrounded the machine area in each case. Once an employee opened that gate or pushed an emergency stop button, a time-consuming series of 8 to 12 steps were required before any hazardous movement could occur. The evidence indicated that the restart procedures would provide plenty of warning to the employees in the form of alarms and visible motions so that they could avoid any hazardous movement of the machinery."
What was the rationale for the Commission's ruling?
The GM Delco case closed with, "Finally, we find no merit in the Secretary's claim that Judge Salyer's reading of the standard, 1, violates the requirement that the authorized employee have exclusive control over his or her safety, and 2, rewrites the definition of energy isolating device. That claim presumes that there is a hazard of unexpected energization, etc., on every industrial piece of equipment during service and maintenance. The terms of the standard clearly place the burden on the secretary to show that there is a hazard as to the cited machines and equipment.
What was the next OSH Review Commission case?
It took 20 more years, but the 2015 Alro Steel decision reinforced the earlier GM decision.
Why did it take so long for others in the industry to challenge OSHA on what seems to be a common problem in many companies?
Very good question, and one we can't answer. One of our content writers for this series of podcasts was the GM Global Safety Director in 1995 and was intimately involved with the Delco case. He also has 25 plus years in ANSI B11. He observes that change is slow, and 10 years is the blink of an eye for significant issues. You be the judge on this matter. How did the Alro case reinforce the GM Delco ruling? In this 2015 case, the Commission ruled the Secretary asserted that the cited LOTO standard applied to the blade-changing activities performed by Alro's band saw operators. There was no dispute that Alro's blade-changing activities constituted service and maintenance.
What were the OSH Review Commission findings in the Alro matter?
One of Alro's experts testified that, in fact, there were 6 elements on the one of the saws to keep the blade from moving: the blade power-on switch, the emergency e-stop switch, the spring-loaded start switch, the PLC program logic controller switch, and 2 interlocks. He stated, "To me, it's a wild exaggeration to think that all 6 could fail."
What are the key takeaways from Alro?
The Commission found that the preponderance of the evidence demonstrated that neither of Alro's saws was subject to inadvertent startup and unexpected energization. The case supported the idea that a machine using a properly designed control circuit to control rather than isolate or interrupt primary energy is not necessarily a violation of 29 CFR 1910-147. A violation only occurs if the machine is subject to inadvertent startup or unexpected energization.
Was there anything else I could learn from Alro?
Yes, the ruling showed that a theoretical failure mode was insufficient to show that an employee could be exposed to a hazard. This case furthered opportunities to control hazardous energy more effectively during the design phase by 1. Fostering the integration of robust controls designed to control hazardous energy, and 2. Documenting the risk assessment process.
Does that take us to the third case?
Yes, it does. An OSH Review Commission decision in 2016 further cemented the findings from the Alro Steel and GM cases. The Commission's written ruling states, the respondent, Matsu Ohio Inc., or Matsu, is an automotive supplier that manufactures stamped metal. Parts at its plant in Edgerton, Ohio. Matsu operates 10 partial revolution mechanical power presses at the plant. The Secretary's theory with respect to all except one of the alleged LOTO violations rests on the premise that control circuit-type devices do not constitute energy-isolating devices as defined in the LOTO standard, and thus are ineffective in isolating hazardous energy under the LOTO standard.
Does the Matsu ruling provide any guidance on the use of control circuit devices in lieu of an energy isolation device?
Yes, the ruling continues with, the Secretary's premise is correct, but it pertains to whether an employer has complied with the terms of the LOTO standard, the second element of the Secretary's burden of proof, and completely bypasses the first element of the Secretary's burden of proof, which is to show that the LOTO standard applies to the cited service and maintenance activities. The Commission has decided that control circuit-type devices in machines may operate in such a manner that eliminates the potential of hazardous energy for certain servicing or maintenance activities, so that the LOTO standard does not apply to those activities.
What does the Matsu case mean in terms of alternative methods?
This case further emphasized that control circuit devices that prevent unexpected energization for specific servicing or maintenance activities tasks mean that OSHA's regulation, 29 CFR 1910-147, for controlling hazardous energy does not apply to those specific activities tasks.
That seems like a really important point. Can you explain further?
Sure, the strict language of the regulation in Clause 19, 10-147A-11, reads, and I quote, "This standard covers the servicing and maintenance of machines and equipment in which the unexpected energization or startup of the machines or equipment or release of stored energy could cause injury to employees."
Let me understand more fully. Are you saying that the regulation does not apply if I can design a control-reliable safety system that will not allow the unexpected energization or startup of a machine?
That's the strict language of the regulation and the interpretation of the OSHA Review Commission in 3 separate cases. Reread it and get this in your gut. It's fundamental to why you will develop a safe alternative method.
Can I tell my management that the OSH Review Commission decisions help answer the question, is this proposed risk reduction OSHA compliant?
Yes, the control of hazardous energy regulation does not apply when a company can demonstrate that unexpected energization or startup will not occur, and a properly designed alternative method effectively controls hazardous energy and provides effective protection to workers such that there is no exposure to a hazard.
One last thing for listeners. You mentioned some quick references for an internet search of the 3 cases. Please repeat them for our audience.
Search for GM Delco Chassis, OSH Review Commission, docket number 912973. Alro Steel Corporation, OSH Review Commission, docket number 13, 2115. Matsu, Ohio Incorporated, OSH Review Commission, docket number 140403.
What's next?
We'll begin the transition to a more in-depth look at voluntary standards by first reviewing what OSHA says. Thanks for tuning in to this episode by DAK Machine Safety. Today we discussed Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission. In the following podcast, we'll discuss OSHA and voluntary standards. You can support us by clicking like and subscribing. Take care, everyone, and until next time.